Welcome back to Echo Ridge and another episode here in our Max Colonization series, where I think today is finally the episode that we build up our kitchen. Now, there's a lot to go into this because, well, we don't exactly have a lot of food right now, and we need to plan for the future. For instance, our rocketry program is going to need a sustainable source of food. We also don't know when we start colonizing all the planetoids, what planetoids are going to need food assistance. So it would be really helpful if we had a food that wouldn't spoil. Now, my personal favorite for something like this is the berry sludge. Why? Because it's just pretty easy. You take some sort of berry, whether it be a pike apple or a bristleberry, add it to some sleet wheat or some megafrond, and you get 4 dupes worth of berry sludge. Now, I do have megafrond grain, although probably not at the rate we would actually need to sustain a lot of dupes upon it. Unfortunately, though, we do not have any bristle blossoms, but sometime during the course of this game, we were able to find some pike apple bush seeds. We have 3 of them right now. Unfortunately, the pike apple bush requires phosphorite, and we don't have a sustainable source of it either. So we may be going over to our connected planetoid sooner rather than later, just so we can fully plan out the food footprint for the next, 2,000 cycles. In the background, I'm going to be cleaning all this sort of stuff up. You can see the dupes have finished sweeping this out and the inside of our sauna. In fact, everything is stacked right here, and it'll slowly end up going over all the rails. I also wanted to automate the blast shots. We do have a bunch of blast shots sitting here waiting, but right now they're all being manually delivered, and I would prefer that not to happen. So in goes not an iridium, but rather an iron conveyor loader. Unfortunately, this auto super cannot reach the blast shot, so it's going to require another one. And I will switch them because who knows why. And now I just got to get a giant rail going all the way to the top of the space biome. Looks like it's time for some bridges. Let's hope we don't flip one of these. There we go. And then we'll head up. It's so nice having 681 tons worth of iron ore. And then we'll go all the way across until we hit this annoying neutronium. And this neutronium. And still going. Unfortunately, I am going to have to switch the rail types. We'll go back over to steel rails. Just because that rocket exhaust can get kind of hot. So I'd rather protect it as much as possible. Then we connect each one of the meteor blasters. And this system is well on its way. All I have to do now is add some automation. The reason why we want to add some automation is because I'm going to be setting the blast shot maker on forever, but I only want there to be a certain amount of a backstock for the blast shots, so we always have a few available rounds in the chamber, so to speak. I think this is the spot right here. We're going to take our conveyor rail element sensor, iron please, and it's going to see if there's any blast shots in this tile. When there is, it's going to send out a green signal, but we only want it to send a green signal when all the blast shots are backed up on this rail and then sitting on this tile. In other words, we don't want it to start sending a green signal when a single blast shot is passed over it. So what we're going to add now is a filter gate, and we'll set it to 5 or 10 seconds, and that way this green signal will only pass through if there's been a blast shot sitting in this rail for longer than that, which tells us the blast shots are backed up on this line. And then, of course, to turn off a building, we have to send a red signal, not a green signal, so we just have to flip this one, using a wonderful NOT gate. We can then take that newly flipped signal, send it all the way back down on the rail where it came from, being careful to avoid any other automation ports like that door, and we just turn off the blast shot maker. Make sure we select blast shots on the conveyor rail element sensor. 5 seconds should work on the filter gate. And if we take a look, you can see that there is a green signal being sent to the blast shot maker because there is no blast shots sitting on this line. So we can go over to our conveyor loader, select blast shots, and now the auto sweeper will start throwing them on the line. Now this may not be enough to back them up, but we're going to find out here in a minute. And it looks like there was some available space inside of this meteor blaster, as with the rest of them, but we will keep creating blast shots until this entire line is backed up all the way down to this point. While those blast shots are busy backing up, and we don't have a lot going on in this episode, even when I am building the kitchen and stuff, it's not going to take a lot of dupes to be able to build this. So I want to set up some tasks to do in the background, one of them being fossil to lime. You can see we have 54 tons of fossil, And it'd be great to turn all that into lime so we then can turn the lime into steel. So I'm going to click forever on this as well, but I'm going to put it down on a priority of 4. So anything I ask the dupes to do, they'll do first. Looks like we are all full on the blast shots, and it left us up to this point here. So we will keep creating more blast shots until it hits this point, and then the blast shot maker will get a red signal. Well, that's one thing accomplished. Nicely done. What was this old automation for? Let's get rid of that. Now's the time to talk about our current foods so we can start to think about what we need in our kitchen. Right now we only have 14 duplicates, and that's because I've been a little slow printing out more. Reason being is I'm not confident in my calorie count. We have one lum ranch which doesn't produce that much lum meat, and we're not eating the overgrowth eggs because we're feeding them to the lums. This whole process here is a peat factory, nothing more. We do have the sweat corns, which we are feeding that peat, which in turn we're then turning into veggie poppers. So this is a source of food. We also have the Rex Ranch and the Dartle Ranch. Now the Dartle Ranch does produce us a decent amount of regular meat, and the Rexes are giving us the tough meat. Additionally, we have some megafrons growing, but again, they are not the most reliable because of the chlorine gas generation. They are doing better with our rotating bleach stone, but still not perfect. So we definitely will need another source of food here soon, but the question is, how are we going to be cooking it? The disadvantage of the smoker is that every recipe takes an entire cycle. Not so bad on duplicate labor, but as you can see, the cook's not even around because we have nothing going in this electric grill, but rarely. So I think first things first is going to be getting our deep freezer in, so we can start storing the food in a little bit better of a situation than just in these refrigerators. Ooh, there is another food source that we're eventually going to have that I haven't gotten around to yet, and that is the Pacu and Jabo ranches. So I'm thinking at the minimum we're going to have a 2-smoker system. As it stands right now, all of the Dartle and Rex eggs are coming into here, with the Dartle eggs in addition to the Lum eggs. The difference is the Lum and the Rexes are tough meat and have to go into a smoker. The Dartles are regular meat and have to go into an electric grill. So what if we brought all that food into here and then we sorted it based on its requirement? Here's what I've decided. This here is going to be our food packing and sorting facility. Right now I am getting ready to transfer all of the eggs that are sitting over here over to here. I've got an automatic dispenser set on critter eggs and sweep only. So now all I have to do is hit a big old sweep. And now we have everything moved, I can get rid of this. Everything in the colony that's coming to be cooked is going to start here. And then we're going to have a few conveyor loaders here to send the evolved eggs or the megafron grains or whatever else we're making on the colony to its prospective kitchen. I'm thinking 2 kitchens, which means 2 deep freezers, one for all of the smoked goods and then one for the electric grill and oven goods. Which means it's time to put in our wonderful thermal aqua tuner. I have it here at the bottom of the sauna. No specific reason other than the fact that there's not a lot of heat being created over here. We do have enough temperature shift plates to sort of make sure that heat travels up. But even in this case, you can see it's 195 up here and only 178 down here. Now we're going to have all this cleared out soon. As promised, I have been cleaning this area here up. We don't have to worry about the thermals so much. As soon as the hot debris left, all of the chilled oxygen has started taking its place. It's still a little warmer up here, but nothing that we have to worry about, which means I can also start gutting through all of this and most likely make a big old mess. I'll have to be careful with some of these liquids. Incidentally, in the background sometime, I have to start cleaning all this area out as well. We don't have too much left of the planetoid to core out, but I really would like to get this whole place sort of nice and snazzy before we start on our space adventures. And that way, the home colony is sort of a fire and forget situation. I've also been going through the painstaking process of trying to clean up these liquid locks, conserving all of the naphtha. A couple more builds and sweeps and we should be good. Just in case, because I am more than likely to create a small mess, I am going to build a wall right here. Now I can drop some of this down and make room for our pipes that are going to come down through our nature reserve and then deep freeze something over here. This area doesn't need a deep freezer. We just wait for the eggs to hatch first before sorting them. But then each kitchen will need its own deep freezer where the raw ingredients are stored until they can be cooked. From that point, I'm thinking about adding a third deep freezer just for the food that we haven't eaten yet. In preparation for needing power for this thermal aqua tuner, I am starting the moving of all these wires. Yeah, I could have just ran this wire all the way over here, but it'd be much cleaner if I just transfer them over. This is definitely the sacrifice that we talked about when using the spider method for power. But you can see there, it didn't take too long. And now we'll have a much cleaner system. Well, once I manage to move this one over, I really need to connect this one like this. In fact, I'll have it connect like that, and then get rid of this one. Set up another transformer. Oh yeah, this is the pain. I'm also co-opting one of these transformers to come back down to the main part of the base, splitting it off even more, and then this side will also run the kitchen. Well, the kitchen and the research area. In fact, I think I can do that a little bit cleaner if I just come down here, and now it's not going through the middle of the base. Small wins. Well, I've got some forever mops. I might be able to do a little bit better mopping up everything in these tanks. Hopefully the forever mops hold. That was a lot of water, but we've managed to get most of it gone. And now I've got nothing but clean space to send our cooling loop. I'm still thinking having 3 deep freezers might be overkill. Don't know. Look at all the great mopping we're doing. It was only a few dozen tons of water. I'm sure that's pretty easy to pick up with a sponge. No big deal. And done. Now I've got some bleachstone to pick up because, well, it's going to make a mess over here, but I think the juice was worth the squeeze. In fact, I'll probably just do a low priority sweep for the whole thing, and they'll get to it when they get to it. Now let me bring down my cooling loop. Here's the first side, and then here will be the return part, like that. Now the question is, how are we going to do this? I've got our smoker room sort of set up because I need to make sure that the foods keep getting smoked, otherwise we'll quickly run out of calories for our dupes. So I think I'll just start by copying and pasting these. I do already have the vent pipes hooked up, no big deal. You'll see these auto sweepers here are going to be able to reach the inside of the freezer, and then there'll be another auto sweeper probably right here that will not be able to. That's going to throw food into the conveyor loader here and send it to a different deep freezer, which means it's probably time to destroy the refrigerators. This is going to be bad. I also need to drain this, but I suppose that's not a big deal. I can just deconstruct those blocks. All the water will fall in here anyways. Okay, where did the chlorine come from, and why am I just now noticing it? Was this all leftover from the bottom, and I just had not seen it? I feel like it just came when I started building the thermal aqua tuner. A nice little surprise. The pod had 2,400 calories of snack fruit, which we may rely on if I don't build this kitchen quick enough. In the end, I've decided on 2 deep freezers, one for the smoke room and then one for the rest of the kitchen. The reason why is because this one auto sweeper is going to be able to see in this deep freezer and all the way to this refrigerator, which means I can have our grill or an oven here, and then this center area, if we ever do need to use the spice grinder, well, I can just pick stuff up, send it over there, and it can sit on the floor because it never spoils. At least, well, that's the theory going in. For now, though, I need to run our coolant loop, and looking at it, this might be the best way. We will use nickel in here, and go back to insulated, and then we can go back up and send it all the way out. Now, the smoke room can get pretty warm because of the heat generated by the smokers at 9,000 DTUs each. If it ends up being an issue, I can turn one of these into a regular pipe, which will help keep this area nice and cool. Okay, so far so good. I did end up using the backcountry grill and the rustic gas range, some more old-timey equipment for our prehistoric run. And I think now is time to fill up that cooling loop and start cooling down those spaces. I've got a tile sitting here. You know what's going there next is a bottle drainer. I'll start throwing some polluted water in this loop and... oh, wait a minute. Do I use polluted water for this? I have to use naphtha, don't I? Remember, we have to go down to at least minus 18 degrees. And while polluted water can go down to 20, that's cutting it a little too close. So once again, we will use naphtha. I have our deep freezers ready. I am not using carbon dioxide this time. If I was going to have the deep freezers one tile lower, I'd use the carbon dioxide that's just naturally sinking into it. In this case, I'm going to drop some bleach stone in there when we're done. No cause for concern yet, but we're down to 148,000 calories. I don't know why. I'm guessing it's because we haven't started cooking the frost buns yet from the Megafron grains. Now that I see those flickering, I also want to put filter gates into them. The filter gate's handy because I can say, hey, only send the green signal if somebody's been standing on this for more than a second. I'll probably say 2 seconds just to be sure, but that way we don't get the weird flickering. Now initially this naphtha is entirely too hot for our deep freezers, starting off at around 55 degrees, so it is going to take a couple of loops around in order to get it down to temps, which we are going to say minus 25, and then we'll wait a few minutes to make sure these are nice and cold. But I am going to start by putting some bleach stone in here, so I'll just say bleach stone and allow manual use. Do a quick 9 so that the Aaron is picked up immediately. You don't need a lot of bleach stone, just enough to get over 1800 grams. You can see that when I filled in the deep freezers, there is only 718 grams, which means the bleach stone is still going to be able to off gas. When it does, it's going to slowly start deleting the carbon dioxide until it flips over to chlorine. Here comes our delivery of bleach stone. 24 kilos should be plenty. So now I will disallow manual use. And here you can see the carbon dioxide literally going down in mass. I hadn't seen that before a couple of weeks ago, but just one of those weird ONI things. I'll fast forward it here for a second. And here we are nearing the point. Carbon dioxide's down at 10 grams, 8, 5, and then it starts filling up with chlorine gas. Now, as long as we end up with more than 1,800 grams of a gas in here, even if something does rot, for instance, if something happens to our cooling loop, nothing will be able to off gas because there's too much gas in that tile. I'm also doing the same thing with this one over here. Unfortunately, they dropped off a ton of bleach stone, but okay, that works too. Now remember, when you are building your deep freezers, you can also use carbon dioxide. You can use chlorine. Chlorine has the added effect of getting rid of all germs. But then again, the deep freezer will do that too, because germs don't like living in cold like that. Incidentally, you could also use a vacuum, but then it's a little bit more difficult to transfer those thermals into the food. Our first deep freezer is down to about minus 25 degrees. The tile itself is at minus 25, which means we can start loading food into here. Now the rail network that we have is going to bring all completed foods over here and drop them off through here. So all we have to do on this conveyor loader is select all the finished foods. In this case, tender brisket, smoked fish, and veggie poppers. So we've got tender brisket, veggie poppers, and some smoked fish. All of it will ride the rails, bypass that output, no big deal, and into the deep freezer. And almost instantly the tender brisket is deep frozen. And then all we have to do is decide what we want to feed the dupes. I'm going to take the fridge and set it on 3 kilos, so there's never any more than 3 kilos worth of food in there. And I'll say the same thing: veggie poppers, tender brisket, and smoked fish. We don't have so much smoked fish yet, but we'll get there. I also know we're going to be making some frost buns, so while we're here I'll do that. We also have some barbecue, and then as soon as I give this auto super some power, it'll be able to load the food from the deep freezer into the refrigerator. Man, we are really close to frost bun, barbecue, and some lettuce. It'd be nice to have some frost burgers. Maybe a lettuce farm in the future? Of course, I did say I was going to use all that grain for berry sludge, and that way we have a shelf-stable food. But we could also look into using the spice grinder, and if we use the freshener spice, using some salt and mealwood seeds, then all we'd have to do is keep the food refrigerated, which we're going to do in the rocket anyways, because refrigerated food with the freshener spice is still shelf-stable. Over here in our food delivery, we need to get this set up. We have 2 conveyor loaders, one going to the smoke room and the other one coming all the way up over here into this deep freezer. So on the first one, I think the only thing we're grabbing right now is the Megafron grain, and that way the grain stays frozen until we get around to using it in the backcountry grill. Also barbecue, which means this conveyor loader also needs to have meat. And there it all goes through the tile. And then this one here is going to say tough meat, sweat corn, and jawbo fillets. Like I said earlier, we haven't made the Jabo farms yet, but regardless, all foods will come into the food sorting room before it goes off to its kitchen. Speaking of which, is it about time we put some automation over here? And now that I have a deep freezer, well, I can make more sweat corn without fear of it going off. Then all we have to do is bring the rail. Oh, that's not a good spot. Then all we have to do is bring the rail and somehow make it over to the kitchen. That's not too shabby right there. Except I'd rather do the vertical bridge. And then on this conveyor loader, we'll just say sweat corn. And now that is automated as well. Now you don't have to do this, but I'm also going to select snack fruit, nutrient bars, and pemmican. So it's all loaded in the deep freezer. And that way I know where all my food is stored on the colony. I just realized I had 2 NAFTA storage areas. I got one over here, and then another one over here. That's a great memory. I didn't discover it until I started putting in the main shaft down here. We're going to drain all the liquids that are going to be in all of these biomes that we're getting ready to dig out and just have them sit there before we rack them and stack them. Oh no, speaking of memory, I completely forgot that I'm still filling this loop. Luckily, because I was using the bottle drainer, it only will put more liquid on the line when it needs it. So this coolant loop still stayed perfectly full. And us back at around 160,000 calories, it looks like our kitchen is stabilized, so now we have the most difficult decision there is. What kind of wallpaper we're going to put in? I'm thinking charcoal checkers. Kind of looks like a diner-ish. Oh wait, we use charcoal checkers for our mess hall. Every commercial kitchen that I've been in is typically white, so why don't we use the fresh white and I'll do 1 strip of black as sort of a backsplash area. And of course I had to do it twice because the first time I used igneous rock, and as we know, we want to use granite so we get the plus 20% to decor. Every little bit helps. And there you have it, our completed kitchen. I'm pretty happy with this design. I don't think I've made a kitchen with 2 deep freezers and a food sorting area. This food sorting area has really paid itself off. That way I don't have to worry about whatever is coming in here. We can deliver it to whatever kitchen we want to. And we even have room for expansion. We did end up with an actual kitchen room, so we could use the spice grinder. And all we would need to do is set up another conveyor loader for whatever food we want to use with the freshener spice. Send it over there. The spice grinder would do its thing, and so anytime a rocket came back, its refrigerator would specifically say, this food that has the spice. Remember, you can set spice foods only on the refrigerator. Which then begs the question, what is our space shelf-stable staple food going to be? Say that 3 times fast. Let me know in the comments below what your food of choice is. And no, it's not going to be curried beans. Let's remember what I have to work with here, okay? I'm looking forward to reading all your recommendations below. So until next time, much love, happy gaming, and I'll talk to you soon.